In this video, we're going to be breaking down everything you need to know about the Victorian-based First Homebuyer Fund Shared Equity scheme. Understanding what grants are available, who they're for, if they're available, if you're eligible, and how to apply is currently more complicated than ever. So my name is Tristan Larkin, I'm here with James Rankin, and you are watching Buy Property Now. So James, how complicated are all of the grants at the moment?
Mate, there's so much stuff going on. You could see why people's heads spin off and, they do just bury their heads in the sand and not continue the process because it's super confusing. Like, we've spent days trying to figure out this stuff, spoken to banks, read all of the, what we could find on the internet. And that's the hard part, is it's really hard to find the information. So we've got the SRO website up, which is for Victoria, which is the grant that we're looking at today. Obviously, you need to know if you're eligible. So I know you've done a heap of research on this, mate. So who is eligible for this grant?
So there is an extended version on the site, but I'll tell you the basics. So you need to be an Australian or New Zealand citizen or a permanent Australian resident over the age of 18. You do need to have the minimum deposit, which is 5% or 3.5%. If you're Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander, plus acquisition costs though. So you do need to be able to fund conveyances, building and pest reports, and stamp duty if that's applicable to you. In order to be eligible as well, you also need to earn $128,000 or less per annum for individuals, or it's $204,800 if you're a joint application. You can have up to 4 people applying for this as well. You need to be a natural person, which just means you're a human, means you're not a trust or a company structure. You can't have any interest in any property in Australia. What that means is, even if you are a beneficiary on a trust and the trust owns property, if you've got any ties to property at all, then you're not eligible. And you cannot purchase any property that is of any interest to a family member as well. So if your relative owns property down the road, you can't go to the government and say, I want to buy it off them, which is all pretty standard stuff, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's just, again, they're covering themselves so people don't, it's always the 1%ers. It's the people that take advantage of these things. So, they're pretty basic, and, the government can get quite wordy in how they present things because it's all just legal jargon on the wording. But yeah, it's pretty basic. You can't own anything. You can't be tied to any other property, even if it's in a trust, and you can't buy it off Auntie Leanne down the road, who's going to sell you a property cheap to help you get into the property market. All of those little bits and pieces, that's what they're trying to cover off.
One additional thing I'll just add there as well is this isn't specifically just for first home buyers. In order to be eligible, you just have to not have any interest or own any stake in a property in Australia or overseas. So if you've been through a divorce, for example, and, one half has kept the house and they got their name put onto the title and you now own nothing, you are actually eligible for this fund as well.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And, it's a good thing that the government's doing, I believe, here, because, I've seen it before. People have gone through a divorce and they've come to us. We've helped them on the sale and the purchase. And it's a nasty situation. They've gone from a family home that might be $800,000 or $900,000, and then they're looking at homes for $400,000 because that's all they can afford. This is at least helping that because the government's chipping in that equity stake or that percentage. Because if you've saved the 5% deposit, the government's going to chip in 25%. So there's a 70% loan. You've just got to cover the costs of what it might be to purchase it. So yeah, as Tristan mentioned, the conveyancing fees, which might be, $1,500. If there's any stamp duty payable, again, if you're not a first home buyer, you've probably got a stamp duty component there. So it is a good thing that the government is offering something like this to get people back on their feet or get on the property ladder in an area or in a world that has been tracking up so fast that it's beyond people's rises in wages. So now you know who's eligible. What next do you do? Like, in terms of finding a property, what do I do there? Like, is every single property available or like up for grabs on this scheme?
No. So there is requirements that the property needs to match as well in order for you to be able to use the scheme. So the property must be a standard residential property, such as a house, townhouse, unit, or apartment. And vacant land is not eligible here as well. and it must be $950,000 or less in metropolitan Melbourne and Geelong, or $600,000 or less in other eligible regional locations. That's pretty much all you need to know. Like, just keep in mind those price caps when you're out looking for homes.
Yeah, so we've created a cheat sheet of these points and all of these areas that are eligible. We'll put a link to that down the bottom. But yeah, it's not as if you can just go and purchase anything that you like. So, if you're eligible, roughly what property you can buy or the type of property that you can buy. So before you head into a contract, like before you go out and you start getting, attached to a particular property, you've got to go and make sure that you get a placing. So this is when you start to, you're gathering some information about yourself, and then you're talking to one of these lenders. So there's only 4 participating lenders for this particular scheme. So they'll ask you, for your proof of identity, proof of income, detailed expenses, all that kind of stuff. Like, they'll have their own individual checklists. But yeah, it's just key to go and talk to these guys first, isn't it?
Yeah, so absolutely. So it's incredibly important that you speak with a participating lender first, and that could be a lender or a broker that specializes in this fund or this scheme. Because what will happen is, once you have received a pre-approval for a compliant home loan, the lender will lodge your application with the Homebuyer Fund with the State Revenue Office. So if your application is then successful, you'll be granted a provisional approval for the Homebuyer Fund, and that means that you will have 6 months to enter into a contract of sale on an eligible property. So you need to do it in that order. And if you don't do it in that order, if you go out and you purchase a property, or you put an offer down on a property subject to finance for 14 days and you try to get this across the line, what will happen is the fund will consider you to have an interest in a property prior to going and getting their approval, which means that you're no longer eligible. You need to void that contract, go speak to a lender, and then the lender speaks to the fund, and then try the whole process again. So it's very important that you do it in that order and not the other way around.
So you understand that you've got your 5%, go and talk to a bank or a broker that specializes in it, get your place, and then you can go house hunting. So that's like the simple steps for that, which is confusing. And where a lot of people will get sort of messed up, because some people will just go and buy the property or go and sign a contract and then try and sort finance afterwards. It doesn't work like that here. I reckon this step here is confusing. So it shouldn't be that. It should be literally, are you eligible? Go and talk to a bank, find a property, an eligible property. I think that step 2 is probably not correct on the website. That could confuse people. Okay, cool. And then settlement. So you've gone and you've bought a property. Congratulations, you've ticked it. You've got your place. It's been approved. All of that's gone through now. So I've got the property, but I really don't like the paint inside it, and I knew that before I bought it. I want to paint everything, and I want to put a new kitchen in. Is that something that I can go and do?
So you need to get written approval from the First Homebuyer Fund if you're looking to make any renovations for $10,000 or over. So it's a very important point to make. They don't want you spending unnecessary money on the property when you're essentially indebted to them. They'd rather you paying them out first. But on top of that, there are a few other ongoing responsibilities that you need to maintain as well. So this is only for owner occupiers, so you need to remain living in the property. And on the anniversary of the settlement each year, you will also have to complete an annual report, which is essentially like what step 2 is on the website or step 3, of you becoming eligible. They'll go through your pay slips and they will make sure that you remain eligible for the fund. So that means that you're not going over the income requirements. And it also is to check to see if you have received any gifts of cash or inheritance, or you've won the lottery or whatever it is. Because if you do, then that means that you could be seen as going over the income threshold, and they will require you to pay them back quicker.
Yeah, which is fine. They want to make sure that these places are going to the right people. If they've helped you get into the situation and then, you're making your way out of it, that's it working. That's the whole purpose of this thing, is to get you in there, you build up equity either through savings and you're out of there, the government's no longer with you as a guarantor, and then they can go on to helping the next person. That's why they're doing it. It's not that the government's big bad asshole trying to get their money back and all of that. they just want that spot to be available for the next person.
Yeah, I think it's very fair as well. It's just as long as you are aware of it prior to going in, like just make sure that you do complete your full due diligence on this scheme as well. I think it's totally fine. Like it could definitely be a good opportunity for someone. Like if you're in a stable job, you're not earning great income, you know that like maybe you're in a government waged job, and you know that the property market is rising faster than your ability to save. As long as you understand this scheme, I think it's probably a good thing to be able to get you in there. At least you're on the property ladder. You've got equity yourself, and your repayments are lower. I think overall, ultimately, that is a good thing for you.
Yeah, and look, it's all situational. We're sort of saying that generally. Obviously, you've got to go and go through the process yourself. And we're not selling this on behalf of the government, but in terms of if I wanted a partner in purchasing a property, 100% having the government as a backer, especially in Australia, we're pretty tight on policy. Yeah, having them as the backer for me, I don't have to pay LMI. My mortgage repayments are going to be less because it's based on the 70%, so not like 95 if I was doing it myself plus LMI. Yeah, it's hard to pick any bad points really. It's more, as you pointed out before, it's understanding all of these things, which is the hard part to find, which is why we're doing this video and why there's the cheat sheet, to just recap all of these little points to make sure that you're fully aware when you're heading into it. But yeah, I believe overall, if it's something that you need, it sounds like a good thing.
So make sure you check out our upcoming videos where we'll be going through the remaining of the grants. And if you are approved and you're ready to go out and start looking at properties, check out this video here to understand the 5 things that you should never tell a real estate agent. And don't forget to subscribe. We'll see you on the next one.